Okay, welcome everyone to this very special episode of A Conversation About Design. My name is Amit Patel. I'm the creative director at Experience Haus. And today's episode is something that we've been trying to get together for probably, 2 months now. We talked about it. And I'm very, very very much looking forward to this conversation. I'm going to get everyone to do their own intros. But to kind of give a bit of a background, the four of us were on a panel at the DDX Conference in February in Dubai. We had a wonderful kind of conversation, but we also felt that it was cut a little short. So we finally managed, after lots of scheduling, to get together on this Saturday morning, and here we are. So I'm going to get everyone to do their own intro. I'll go just by left to right that I can see on my screen, and then we're going to jump into this wonderful conversation around service design and AI, but really with a focus on practical realities, challenges, and the aspects of implementation as well. Okay, so let's get going. Ru, let's start with you. Welcome.
I'm glad that we finally made it because the last time it was really interesting and fruitful. But let me introduce myself real quick. As you all know, I'm Rowan. I go by Ru, and I'm the product research lead at Careem rights across the Middle East, Africa, and South Asia at the moment. And I have been in this field for 7 years and more. I worked in different sectors. I worked in EdTech for 4 years. I worked in healthcare at the Ministry of Health and Prevention of UAE here. I worked also with government in KSA, so it was in tourism sector. I worked a bit in fintech, and now I'm more in ride-hailing, super app, and fun things.
Amazing. Great to have you back with us again, Ru. Dimitris, over to you.
Thank you. It's very nice to be with you again. We had a really nice discussion at DDX, so I hope we can replicate that here. So I'm Dimitris. I'm co-founder of YuGin, which is a boutique service design and strategy consultancy. And I'm the founder of Aeon, which is an AI-powered leadership and wellness coaching platform for organizations. But my background is in product design leadership, where up until 3 months ago, I was head of product design for Visa and the innovation centers across CEMEA, covering 90 countries, working with Visa's clients, airlines, big banks, big retailers. Prior to that, I was in London, working for MasterCard and the biggest gaming company, bwin, globally. And I did that in Athens, Greece, where I had my own design studio. So yeah, I decided to quit the corporate world and embrace the entrepreneurial journey.
Nice one. Thank you so much, Dimitris. Great to have you as well. And Ollie, over to you.
Yes, and thank you, Amit, for bringing the gang together again. Because it was really fun, and looking forward to continuing this. So, I'm Oliver. I lead up experience design and innovation with a healthcare focus at PwC. So we work really across the board. From governance, regulation level when we're talking about AI. To the clinical setting. So how can we put AI in the hands of physicians, clinicians, nurses, and it not disrupt an already very difficult environment that they're in. So we've been really working on that challenge and that kind of problem statement. But also at an individual level, how could AI drive healthier behavior? How can it kind of start to engage you and learn and personalize the health journey to optimize and change behavior? That's the essence of it, essentially. So I'm lucky enough to kind of work across the board on that. It's a very interesting time to be in this space.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and again, great to have you joining us as well, and yeah, just all three of you kind of making the time. I think will make a very fruitful conversation for everyone that's listening in as well. So, where we want to start, obviously, we're talking about service design and AI, and as we all know, things have continued to change and have radically changed even in the last 2 months that we were together, since we were together. So, to kind of set the scene a little bit, I would love for you to kind of each individually talk about something that you're currently working on, an AI-related initiative that touches upon service design, and then we can start talking about some of the implementation challenges or the realities of this as well. So again, let's maybe just go left to right that I can see you in. Ru, do you want to kind of kick us off?
Yeah, of course. To be honest, lately we have been working on a lot of AI initiatives in general, but the latest one that we just started working a month ago was churned users. and future predicting when the user is going to churn, and also future proofing that in general. And if we already had churned users, why they churned in the first place, what was the behavior pattern, and how can we also retain them, get them like re-engage with the platform again. And we try to analyze or use machine learning algorithm to track the behavior pattern or the historical rides, ride frequency, ride allocation, and so on and so forth. And also we work with different teams. So for example, the customer care or customer support, which are like the first people that interact with the users whenever there is like a big issue. And we found like things like this. Users, for example, are most likely to abandon the platform if they had a huge, like a bad experience. And for example, it didn't get solved for any reason. Because again, in ride hailing in specific, it's a bit tricky because we have two types of users, right? We have the riders, we have the captains, and both experiences intersect and have influence on each other. And there are some things that are out of our hand, whether it was like traffic or like weather, that there was like unpredictable weather change in general that happened, God forbid an accident, these kind of things. So we're trying to use the AI or machine learning algorithm in these things so that we know how we can contribute, again, predicting like for churned users, and also future proofing that in general on our platform.
Nice. And I think that I already can kind of sense an area of questions that I want to go into in terms of the team. So once everyone's kind of given a kind of overview of an initiative, I'd love to kind of come back and explore like what's the team that's needed behind the scenes to make that all happen. So I think that's that will be
that's
interesting
true, because
to
like
explore.
we work in with a lot of teams, and again in Careem as a super app. It's not only rides, because we have to bear in mind and put into consideration the other services that the users are using. We don't we have SSU, single service user, and we have MSU, multiple service user. And also like we have other AI initiatives that kind of intersect again with the churned users or the future proofing, like peak predictions for the supply prediction, demand, the ETAs, and so on. So it's a lot of things that are connected together, but the latest initiative was that.
Okay, nice one. Thank you so much. And yeah, we'll explore that a little bit more in just a few moments. Dimitris, over to you.
Can you please repeat the question because I forgot?
No problem. I just want you to
you'll have to do a lot of editing with me.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. I try and be edit free, so that's my goal. So the question was just to set the scene for everyone, for you to explain a current AI related initiative, and it could be around the performance coaching tool that you're building, just to kind of give us a sense of something that you're currently working on.
Yeah, got it. Okay, cool. So yes, I'm going to speak about the coaching tool that I'm building, because I have found it so fascinating, as it brings together so many different disciplines, from design to dev to psychology to coaching, which is very different than psychology. And the challenge that I've seen the most emerging is that when you're trying to use AI to power deeply personal and emotionally charged experiences, this is where things can go really wrong. Because let's say you're offering to your clients, like I want to do, an AI-powered coaching assistance that helps with your business development, growth, leaderships, and everything. But also with very personal things like burnout, for example, which is not only because of the work environment, but because of the home environment as well. So then the question becomes, how do you create an experience that doesn't feel robotic, that is very perceptive of the context, that it's not tone deaf? Because if you provide an experience with those components, then you have lost your clients instantly. So what I've seen with AI, with what I'm building, is that the challenge is not technical. It's about how do you design an AI that feels emotionally intelligent and context aware, so that you earn your client's trust. And that's not something you solve with a feature, for example. If for example, when I was working with fintechs and banks, Many times a feature could solve some of the issues that they were having. But what we're talking about here is a layered problem that touches the emotionality that you create with the tool and the client, and then how do you use that as a design language to meet their needs.
Got it. And I think this kind of nicely really touches upon a conversation that Ollie and I had just before we kicked off the podcast around kind of even just with ChatGPT. It feels like the responses that we're starting to get from it now, it's starting to understand a little bit more around context. It's understanding a little bit more as the model kind of has improved. So again, we'll touch upon some of those challenges that you've just mentioned. But yeah, Oliver, over to you kind of just to tell us a little bit more about what you've been working on.
There's a common pattern here. Dimitris always gives me a good segue. Because and you've kind of maybe inspired me to go into a slightly different direction, but the emotional element, right? That qualitative interaction that AI can have with an individual, and what that can actually bring, what fruits that can bring. So we looked at it. So, for instance, conversational AI right now is ridiculously good now, isn't it? Right. So, it's almost now about how do you contain it to have those conversations, whereas before it was very limited. And one way we started to think about it is we're trying to really understand an individual. So we're looking at it from an individual perspective, and thumbs up. And how can we engage that individual through conversation to understand more qualitative data? So, for instance, we worked on one application where the user had 3 nights of bad sleep, in a row. Now, right now, my app will just say, bad sleep. But what conversational AI could do is it could engage that user and say, hey, you've had 3 nights of bad sleep. How are you feeling? Just that simple question of, how are you feeling? We'll get a different type of answer from that user. So they could say, perhaps they might say, actually, I've got this cough. It keeps coming at night. I've now got this cough. So straight away, we've got something. We've built a picture that we can start to use and navigate in terms of the care. But also what we start to do is, and what we learned is that we have this opportunity with conversational AI to actually know somebody. And I think that's how you get that trust, and you start to build some sliver of empathy, is the more that you can really understand an individual, and the more that individual can feel understood, then you can start to build that trust, and then what you can do with that is amazing. So that's definitely a space we're working in at the moment, and looking at how that can go. And as you said, Amit, we had that conversation. I had a conversation with ChatGPT yesterday, because it said it's now got this whole new memory of all of my interactions. And I probably had one of the most meaningful career conversations I've ever had in my life with GPT. And I really felt like, wow, there's empathy there, because it's reflecting me in a way. So I felt this empathy, and it was really, really cool. So yeah, this is a really, really interesting space, I think, in terms of building better pictures, building up more fidelity of our understanding, and using that to kind of engage better.
Yeah. So thank you so much for sharing all of those. I think to now shift our focus onto kind of where we want to explore a lot of this. So many conversations, so many things happening, so many organizations, products being built, etc. What are the practical realities and challenges of actually making all of this happen, like the actual implementation? So I don't mind who kind of wants to start to talk first. It could be from the team, it could be from the data perspective, it could be from ethics and risks. I think let's just open up the conversation and kind of see who wants to talk about some of the practical realities.
I'll start.
Yeah.
Because remember, also during the panel discussion that we had, when I said it also starts with us. And as Oli was just saying, that we used to have our perception for AI in general and machine learning is changing over time, not even over time, overnight. with a lot of things that's coming up, and also with a lot of awareness education that we get, and we like the exposure that we get as well while we're using it. And the more we use it, the more we learn, and the more also we educate it so that it can help us in return.
Mhm.
So I feel like the first challenge, it is, as you mentioned, it's multiple challenges, but the first challenge is with us to have the trust that this could help us actually improve whatever we're doing. This could help our users, customers, and also help the platform to simplify, for example, users' life or people's life, which is in Careem. So for me, to be honest, the first challenge was to start using the AI tools more, and that to be open, like to go for trials, to go for errors, to explore things that, like ChatGPT, of course, like we're all using it, but what about other tools as well that are still, being built? They're still experimenting even with us. Some of them would work, some of them would not, but at least sparks this, these thoughts and ideas. Second challenge would be actually, again, with the team, especially in my case, I'm working with, it's a bit dynamic. I'm working with different teams, different fields as well. And it's how we all, speak the same language a bit. So for example, from data, they are doing huge work, amazing work, but they are more, with numbers, with like, okay, how we can build this, how the algorithm can pick this, the numbers and so on. But for me, it's more like behavioral insights.
Mm.
How can we, as also like Dimitris was saying, emotional intelligence, how can we try to combine the behavioral insights that we have, the past interaction, but again in person? I don't remember if I told you before, like the latest research study that I had been working on was ethnographic research. And in general, in ethnographic research, it requires the researcher to go on fields. So I took the rides with the users, which are the riders and the captains. The session lasted between one session out of many, lasted between like 1 hour, 45 minutes to 2 hours and a half. Or even almost 3 hours, only one session. But it was because to put myself in, it literally, it's not even like me putting myself in users' shoes. It's literally, I am with them. I'm having the experience firsthand. Although me myself, I'm a user, like I'm taking the rides, but it is from their perspective, through their lens. And then we were amazed from the insights that we got, that data was telling us something, but like on ground, it was something else. Doesn't mean that both of them are wrong, but it's the context. So it's like how we can, make sense out of them both. And the third challenge is with the user. How can we build a trust with users so that they can trust actually that AI can help them? Again, and in my case, we're talking about different countries, markets, cultures, like social issues, even economic issues, and a lot of things like that. Some of them, like speaking of fintech, some of them have the awareness and education on digital payments. Others are not. So some of them are tech savvy, others are not. And again, depends on captains and riders. And this is, I think, the most challenge that we would face. It's also how we educate users, how we can build that trust so that they can trust us and trust AI that this can help them, instead of abandoning, like the platform and go elsewhere.
I think there's a great, again, a really nice segue into now tackling this part of the conversation with both Dimitris and Oliver. I think that user-centric approach, and you're both working in very, very, so I'm glad you kind of raised that, Rue. Dimitris, you're working on a product that you are building now to help with performance coaching that has to be obviously very user-centric. Oliver, you're working very patient-focused areas. So I'd love for kind of, Dimitris, if you want to go first, how are you approaching building that trust? You kind of talked about it early on, building that trust into the product as you develop it.
Yeah. So it's funny because what came in mind as Rowan was talking is the previous experience when I was working with Visa. And some years back, as all of you will remember, there was this frenziness about the metaverse, right? It lasted for about 6 months, a year, and then kind of died a quiet death, almost, something like that. It's not that the same is happening with AI, but I recognize a similar pattern, and that is that every single business that I have spoken to, because I have my coaching platform that I'm building, also started a consulting business where I continue the work on product design. So the majority of the clients that I'm talking to that want to embed AI into their systems, they want to show that they're doing it. So in many cases, the AI kind of hijacks the experience. So instead of making the moment feel smoother, instead of using the AI to make the moment feel smoother and smarter or more personalized, there's this need to show that I'm using AI for everything.
Yep.
So that for me is a very big issue when it comes to establishing trust, because AI is not there to hijack and it's not there to show its intelligence and how greater it can be. It's there to make the utility even smoother. So that's one point around trust that I would raise for sure, and I'm raising it with the clients that I'm working at the moment. Another thing that has to do with the internal teams is that how do we build trust between us, the people who work behind the scenes to ship an experience which is powered by AI. And I like the word that you used, Ro, which is we need to speak the same language. I think that's what you said, right?
Yeah.
The thing is that, yeah. So language, of course, we're not talking about Python or Figma or something like that. It's how do we speak together as designers, engineers, and data scientists to come together and work on this new experience. And the key differentiation here from before AI is that before AI, we used to design screens, let's say, but now it's more about designing decisions that are influenced by a collaboration between AI and the client. So that for me is the common language that we need to speak. How do data scientists not design models that are rigid, but design models that can take the input that I give to the AI and emerge patterns? And then how do designers, developers make sense of that to offer a personalized experience? And I heard something really cool recently, that with AI, we will have the opportunity to design generative interfaces. So the common language between designers, developers, and data scientists needs to be there, and it needs to be rooted not in features on solid data and rules, if this then that, but around how do you design decisions. But do I answer your question? Because I think you asked me something different.
No, absolutely. And I think there's a few. I want to pick up on something that you mentioned in as part of that was people. We do a lot of work at Experience House with a lot of kind of early stage entrepreneurs building early stage ventures, and there was a stage for a while, probably for a good year and a half, where any kind of entrepreneurship kind of program, 80%, 85% of the startups say we're using AI. AI is going to do this. AI is going to do this, without actually properly thinking about the user, kind of their need, or it was just a stamp. And but unfortunately, that stamp was also the hot stamp that investors are looking for.
Exactly.
And that was the challenge, was that everyone wanted that. And so, but now we're starting to see less of that, because I think people are waking up to the reality of actually building something like that from scratch. Again, which is what we kind of want to talk about as well. So now, kind of shifting, Oliver, to you. You're working in a space where it's very patient driven. So kind of following on from what Dimitris has said and Rue, kind of how do you make sure that kind of that trust and that user centric approach is embedded in what you're doing?
Yeah, I want to definitely, So something Dimitris was saying there in terms of we have to be careful, like where we use it and we don't overuse it. And I think the best example that I can kind of bring here is in a clinic with a clinician. And one principle that we really identified was, you always have data driven, right? We didn't want to use that word. We wanted to say data informed, because it's more about augmenting the decisions, supporting the decisions rather than driving any decisions. So it's how you can really envision, and so taking that, how that works at a data model level, to then how you actually visualize and present that to a clinician, so that you're not overloading with lots of insights. So like, they don't need that. They don't need that. They need the right piece of information. It needs maybe some options. It needs to be data backed, data informed. But you need to reduce the noise when it comes to a clinician. So that's my kind of specific example that I think kind of relates back quite well to what was being discussed. But I do want to highlight something a bit more broadly challenging, where currently, I have the opportunity to work at a kind of very large organizational level, and we get to see the challenges that they're having, just getting to AI, just getting to it, and one thing I really identified was there is a bit of an analysis paralysis at the moment at a large organization, because it's very hard for them to think about, how do we do this safely? How do we, people are concerned about their jobs. When you're looking at it from a back office perspective, there's all these factors, and it's like, how do you do it safely? And they were going through so much analysis in terms of what the use cases that they could identify for AI. And they ended up with this massive list of use cases. It's prioritized, but like, what's that next step? How do we really help them make that next step? And I think that this is the perfect space for service design. It really is. I think service design in its nature lends itself very well to how we think about AI and how it's kind of structured in systems, how there's different decisions, there's networks, and there's frameworks that can be used there. And I think that at an organizational level, the way you mentioned, Amit, since we last spoke, how much has changed in the AI space? So if you're constantly always focusing on one thing, you're continuously moving behind. So it's not necessarily about, and I'm trying to look at the challenge from an organization, a large organizational level. The challenge isn't the what, it's the how. So it's building that safe space for innovation. So what does that look like? That's, synthetic data that can be used, models of their actual workflows to be able to be kind of innovated with, but also individuals who are hands-on. And this is really, I think that this is a huge space and opportunity for the service designer growing up in this world to kind of really kind of come in and help put this thinking and these concepts into the hands of the business and show how they're going to change, to build the business case for change. And that's really the point, to be able to build that business case for change. So I think that's a challenge and an exciting opportunity for designers.
I love that you kind of mentioned that last bit, because we've just started, in May, we're going to be working with a large bank in America and building a bit of their AI capability. And what I like about their approach, which is very different from some of the other companies, they just want to know the art of the possible. They haven't asked to basically been said, we're going to start using these tools, we want to start doing this, and show us everything, etc. They're just like, we're in a bank, very strict rules around data. We can't just start chucking things into this kind of environment. But we want to be shown stuff in a safe space so we know what's possible, so we can then start to build the business case for it as we move forward as well. And of course, they're probably using AI in risk analysis or different areas of the bank as well. But I found that approach, and it's not surprising because they're a very kind of innovative and forward-thinking kind of bank, is very different from some of the other organizations. And actually, I would love to kind of talk about this point for just a few minutes, because Rue, you kind of mentioned it as well, where it was about the first challenge was, us or you, right? And I wanted to kind of pick up on that because you're all working in very different disciplines, all working on a kind of the same area, but in different disciplines. How much of this comes down to, obviously you're all believers, you're executors, you're working in this space, but how much of this kind of comes down to who else in my organization do I need to convince or to get on board? And how do you go about doing that?
That's a very good question. But remember during the panel discussion when I asked this question, how many of us, even for attendees, how many of us used to be skeptical about using AI, or we were opening ChatGPT, simple thing.
Yeah.
We're asking some about the research plan, methodology, design, whatsoever. And then when we feel that someone is coming from our team, manager, whatsoever, we just close the tab or minimize. Exactly. Do you remember how many people actually raised their hands that are doing this? The thing is, we were not normalizing saying that we were skeptical, we were insecure, and that includes me. When it first launched, but because machine learning has been there, by the way, for years, but it just now came to light, let's say that, to a lot of people, like to everyone, literally. And there are people that had been studying it. I have people like they already did their masters, their PhD and everything in machine learning. They have been, like invested so much in it. And people who just like heard about it like last year or 2 years ago. And it was for us, as I said, to have the trust that, first of all, we're secure. This is not going to replace us. And this is very important. AI is there to assist us, not to replace us, and to assist our work. So it's okay if I know that this task will take a lot of time for me, and I know AI will assist me in this, and it will be accurate or will get me the results that I need, but to have the trust on that and to teach it. So this is very important, and it's how we are using AI. Am I just like telling ChatGPT, I want you to do this and that's it? Or am I giving it instructions, or, like what are the things that I'm expecting to get out of that? And then I'm guiding it. So it's also, I'm using it to assist me, and I'm guiding it how to assist me as well.
Yeah.
In terms, actually, at Careem, we had built a whole department for AI. We have people that are working so hard on, like, for awareness, even for us employees. Like they give us these boot camps. They are like these sessions, these even like tools that, or even like we get to know it before, not anyone else, but you know what I mean? Like before it gets like trendy or something. And like we get access to that. We always have sessions, like it's not even weekly, like every 2 days or something. We always have like updates on that. So to be honest, I feel I'm lucky and blessed that we don't have this issue so far, because we already have a whole department that is responsible for that awareness, education, and a lot of things. And even like for the security, like how while using AI tools, how we can make sure that our insights, our data is still secured, and so on.
I think there's so much there to unpack, and again, I see so many parallels in the organizations that we've been approached in terms of AI training. That some of them, they are just looking at it as just a plug and play tool. They just look at it as like, oh, this is going to come in and do that work. And what's so, I think, even more so over the last couple of months, as tools like Lovable and Bolds and Replete, which are these rapid prototyping kind of, replacing kind of that, that early coder. But you have to think like a business analyst, to your point. You can't just think, here's a prompt, and I give me something back. You need to know what good looks like. You need to know, and you need to build in incremental ways, and like a business analyst who understands flow and process, to understand where you're going to get that really good outcome or output moving forward as well. So I think there's a lot of education that comes with that.
Yeah, and you wouldn't know unless you keep using it, so that you know how it helps you. And so again, back to the point, the more you use it, the more you learn and the more you educate it. But as you mentioned, it's, again, you're guiding it.
Yeah.
It's not the one that guides you. You are guiding it how to help you at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. Dimitris, in terms of your work as a consultant, what kind of challenges are you seeing with some of the organizations that you're working with in terms of starting to think about kind of AI and the possibilities of embedding it within kind of service design, or just in general throughout an organization?
Yeah. I can divide it into two categories. The first category is a practical one, and the second category is a philosophical one. Let me start with the practical one, because in the process, I will think about the philosophical one as well, because I don't have it ready to go. So the practical one, we are consulting now with a big fintech about the wallet capabilities and something that I cannot speak publicly about. So the question there is, how do you use your servers to gather data in a way that can be used both by data scientists and AI? And this is a problem that I didn't know it existed. And why does it exist? Because a data scientist, for example, and by the way, the company that I'm consulting is very similar to Careem or Rowan, so maybe you get some ideas there. So there's this question of how clean the data should be, so that the data scientist can take it and do the job, do their modeling and everything. For that to happen, the fraud data, because we're talking about fraud now, the fraud data need to be stored at a separate server than the rest of the data, because if I have an analyst, a data analyst, going through the main server where everything is stored to pick up the data that are related to fraud, they will need down 3 to 4 weeks. Basically, that's the timeline of that company. And usually it's 2 to 3 weeks for every company to clean data sets. So within these 2 to 3 weeks, the company is losing money because of fraud. So they need a dedicated server to store fraud-related data to not lose money. Cool. Now, on the other hand, now that we're trying to embed AI in some of the core functionality, AI doesn't work in a rule-based scenario. It doesn't work if this then that, which is why the clean fraud data server is needed. The AI works by being able to see everything and show you patterns, not rules. So that's a difference. When we're talking about data modeling, it's usually around rule-based scenarios. And we're talking about how do you put AI into your workflow, then we're talking about the emergence of patterns, which comes from having an overview of everything. So that's a practical challenge there. How do you have the service in such a way so that data scientists and rule-based scenarios can be used and do their work, and then you have AI also augmenting your entire experience. So that's a very practical challenge there. The philosophical challenge. I will speak about it in the context of my other endeavor, which is the coaching platform. And the philosophical challenge for me comes with, for example, what happened with us? What happened with us was that the last 2 months, we were trying to arrange a meeting for this conversation to happen. And it was really difficult because we had schedules, some things were happening, some unfortunate scenarios, etc., etc. So what came up to me is that the most important commodity that we have is presence. We are present here. We manage to be present for each other and for the common goal, which is the podcast. So that presence is philosophically fundamental for our relationship, not only between us four, but as society in general. How do you come up? How do you show your presence to the other? And when you embed AI in an experience, how do you make sure that it's not that you are faking empathy or you are faking humanity, let's say. It's how do you respect it, but at the same time you show presence as an AI tool. You design presence as a designer, let's say, which is aware of the context and is also aware of the emotional component of the client. And I intentionally don't use the word user within this context because there's a different relationship when we start to use AI to emulate empathy, humanity, and that philosophical strata. So I think that's my practical data servers, philosophical. How do you emulate presence in a way that is relatable and you can connect the client with the experience in a much deeper essence?
I think you have done a wonderful job of setting up two things. I think one of the questions I want to ask before we end today is what advice you would give to an up-and-coming designer. And I think that touches a lot about their mindset of how to approach building an AI experience. So we'll come back to that. But I also think you've probably given Ollie a wonderful segue into what he's building. And I'd love to kind of see what your thoughts are on that in terms of that building that presence into the products that you're working on.
Yeah, it's really let's just say we're in the motion of figuring that out. I think most people are, right? This is why I love these conversations, like curious people who are just trying to figure this out, because the truth is when AI is on the table, there's this beautiful mysticism in the room. There is, and it's still like not everybody's got like an absolute hang on it, and exactly an absolute feeling of how it's actually going to work. And obviously in healthcare, we've been exploring it in lots of different angles. I mean, and as a consultant as well, I loved the first question, in terms of how are we using it in consulting. And I was probably one of the very early adopters, I would say, in my organization in terms of using it. I remember the whole, hide the tab thing, like don't, you didn't want people to know you were using it. But I soon learned that you very quickly learn that there's a bad way of using it and a good way of using it, right? And I don't know about you guys. I've been on like sometimes you think about it's going to make things faster, but I've been on like hour-long back and forth sessions with AI, just trying to kind of land on certain ideas. And I think that that's really what it was great for. It was like having somebody to kind of throw things back at me for me to react to. And I'm going to come down further actually, and just kind of think about some little practical things that I learned that could probably be shared. One thing that really changed my game was going analog, was printing off what GPT said and stepping away from any technology and with a pen and just kind of almost like going into a review of it and writing comments and commenting and just kind of really just that taking myself out of that space allowed me to just think about it differently. Because I think that once you're in it for so long, you kind of get yourself in a bit of a loop, or you can do. And by taking myself away and going analog, pen and paper, then coming back and just consolidating what I've thought and feeding that back, the way that it would evolve would be the final outcome would just feel something so authentic is probably the word I think we're all trying to aim for, but like it was definitely further along in that sense. So that was a really, really good practical thing. Now, designers have this amazing tool now, I believe, or tools. And the way that they can use it, obviously, the way that I see it is that it can bring such a higher fidelity to the work that we do. If I think about it from a CX, UX kind of perspective, we can now, we've always been saying we're data driven. That's always been because that's truthfully true. But we can almost get to insight driven work now, where we can, as Dimitris is saying, we can identify not just like this means that, but we can identify patterns in data. So I think that we can start to use this to be more insight driven within the work that we do, to add a higher fidelity. If I'm doing a journey for a patient, for instance, and I'm looking at it from some different layers, and to be able to try and understand where those pain points are, try to understand perhaps what could be the root causes of those. Well, I can now kind of use GPT or a similar tool to kind of just to add probably another 10 layers that will kind of give me a summarization that just factors in angles that I probably wouldn't have taken. And so I think that it allows us to add a higher fidelity to our work. It allows us to add insights to our work. And I'm talking about it from a research space. Man, I could go on here if I keep going, because me, Amit. I'm a start to finish kind of builder. I've been everything from research all the way to building. I've been using Bolt so much, and I think tools like Bolt, like you say, it's not going to replace the developer. Right now, the way a developer is, they have their. It's usually like a waterfall. They call it agile, but it's usually waterfall. They have some, something to build. They have to go away and build it, and it takes a while before you can actually properly test it. Well, Bolt can help you test and iterate very quickly. So if the developer is using something like Bolt, and I can tell you now, developers will be using Bolt better than non-developers, more than likely, because you still have to have a foundational understanding, and then you have to then be able to take it further as well. But I think that what AI-driven, prototyping and building brings is this ability to fail faster and cheaper and quicker with real code. I mean, I built something recently with Bolt. It was bringing in dummy data. It was bringing in live feeds of dummy data. So you can build with AI in mind very, very easily in Bolt, and you can start to figure out, what does this look like? And when you put that in the hands of people, it just, they're like, right, okay, so this is how it's going to feel. This is how it's going to look. Or maybe now I actually want it to be a bit like this. And that's going to just really, really enable that.
Yeah, absolutely. We've started recently. I've been playing around with Lovable and just creating like little side projects for fun things, and just amazing how quickly you can get stuff off the ground. But like you said, you do need to be thinking like a developer. You do need to be thinking like a business analyst. You need to know what good looks like along the way and build very incrementally. It's not just going to, again, replace it's not going to take over and replace several months of what a developer would do.
No,
it's going
not,
to be
at all. Not at all.
I think also you mentioned, just adding on that, you mentioned a very important point, as well as Dimitris, about the data. So it's also to make sure what kind of data we're feeding it so that we can get the right results. So like cleaning the data, validating the data. We know that these are the, like the right segment, the right, again, data that we need to feed the tool or the AI so that we can get the output that we need. Otherwise, it will backfire.
Exactly.
We might get, like, as you mentioned, literally dummy stuff, and it will backfire.
You've hit on such an important point there, like that, and this is really where GPT can go crazy. I generated 500 patient feedback for using GPT. It took me a while to build the model to do it, but it's generating feedback from different personas, from different things, and it's giving me this data that I can now work with. So this synthetic data, but I was training it with real data. So like you can scale. That's what I mean. You can scale very quickly. You can build with real data. We don't have to sit around as designers, and a lot do, waiting for real data. Maybe that data doesn't even exist because it's a new product. Like you can synthesize this data using GPT, and it will output a JSON file. And you can and you have that JSON file, and you can use that with another tool, or use it. I think even Figma has a way of using JSON files now for data. But like this is a really powerful point to start scaling data, training it, getting more real world data sets to innovate with.
I want to, just off the back of that one, end with a final question. And again, I really appreciate your time, and I know it took a while to get us here, but I've learned so much even just listening to all three of you today as well. I want to end with one question, and just to kind of throw this back into back to that audience that we were in front of at DDX, which were a lot of up-and-coming designers, UX, mostly UX, I think. Some were service designers or a few product managers. Some were very kind of curious about the space as well. You're all working very well established in your careers, and I would love for you to kind of end today's conversation with, what would your advice be to that kind of UXer or service design that's entering kind of the space now, and what they can start to do in terms of building, like Dimitris said, that philosophical approach to building AI products? And I don't mind if you kind of go more technical advice or more kind of philosophical mindset approach, but I'd love for you to kind of just each give me, what would your advice be to that kind of that person that's growing in their role now? Ru, go ahead.
Yeah, to be honest, like I wouldn't say also advice to them. It's to all of us, because again, we're still learning, and I want to make sure that like it's more like we're sharing thoughts here, and it's like an open discussion. But like literally, I can say something now, and then upon like after doing it or implementing it, and after the experience, I feel like no, we need to change that. And this is where actually whether researcher, designer, developer need also to be true to themselves, and know that it's leave a room for errors, trials and errors, and communicate that openly. And also, it's important for the place that they are working at to create this safe space for them, and again, learning. But one of the things I would say, like a huge misconception, is AI is only for automation. I hate it when we say it like that. Let's, for example, talk about this podcast. Today's episode is about service design. Okay, what is service design, or like in general, what does do our work, or does our work involved in service design? Is to make it more human, to understand the people, like at the hospital, to go there. And I remember like some of the studies were like to go there at the hospital, see the patients, see the nurses, see the doctors, because again, there are like different users you have there, and see like even the psychological effect that they have on them. You know, like you have no idea. And I, of course, Oli would know better here, but like how, like, you know, dealing with patients, especially with like the extremely, you know, like cancer patients or like things that you can see them in pain every day, every hour, and how this have an impact on the people that are working there, right? So service design in general, and the same for fintech, or like in general for payment or finance or things like you know, like it also involves money. It involves, and you don't know where this person is coming from, again, about their background, how are they gonna use this money. Some of the situations are extremely critical, and it is a life or death situation, right? So service design is more about making the experience more human, right? So it's the same with using AI. How can we use AI to make service design more human? And a second thing would be being transparent with our users, customers, clients, whatever, however you're gonna call them, being transparent with them. Have any of you watched the Black Mirror?
Yeah.
Yes.
Season? Okay. So first episode, right? Common people. Of course, I would love to talk a lot about it because I have a lot of thoughts on it and a lot of opinions. However, I would only talk about how they weren't transparent from the get-go, right? Also, like it is very helpful, you know, like she wouldn't have been alive or like, you know, like come out of this coma if they didn't implement that module, right? But then like ads started with for people who didn't watch it. Oh, okay, no, I'm not gonna give spoilers because I hate that. But you gotta watch it and then watch this episode again. That there was no transparency, and they felt that it's a fraud, right? They are being manipulated, like emotionally, financially, physically, even literally, they're being manipulated, and there was an abuse along the way. So it's like how we can be transparent upfront with the users. In ride hailing, if we are using AI for like, you know, like deciding on the optimal route or pricing, or we have to be transparent with the users that we're using this, and AI, like, or like, so that we can choose the optimal route for you, so that you can get there faster. But there might be, you know, like a room for not error, but like there things that are out of our control, or this is under testing. And this is why it's also very important for any of us, whenever we work on something, we don't just launch it to everyone. We have to do and I remember like you said something like this as well, like testing, prototyping and testing. It's how we're gonna test it on the right users, the right segments, right? A/B testing, usability testing, functional testing on the right users, the right context. Because again, at the end of the day, for us, it's like using, and it is our responsibility, and we have to be accountable for that. Using the right tool to solve the right problem, and also for the right people, right? And this is why we have to make sure that AI, it's very vital to make sure that AI adapts local market nuances. Like this is a totally different topic. I don't think we would have the time to talk about this now, but like to make sure it adapts the local market nuances. It doesn't make sense to build something upon, you know, like a specific user behavior, a specific segment or like market, and then we decide to launch it to other markets. And like this is very important, but I know that this is another topic. We don't have the time to talk about this now.
Well, I mean, after this, we're going to have to kind of try and schedule in our next one once Dimitris is back, and we'll try and figure it out. Yeah. Thank you so much, Ru. Lots of really good kind of insights to share with our kind of audience. Dimitris, over to you. What would be your...
I like the fact, I like the fact. I have my notes as you speak, guys. I'm writing what you say, and I want to connect what Oliver said before and what you said even way before, and what I want to say. Anyway, let me try and nail it. So what to say to someone new starting with this thing? I will start with a statement. I will go to a conversation, and I will end with 3 questions. The statement is to start with human friction and not tech fascination. Just because you can use AI doesn't mean you should. And in the same way that when you have a good friend and you're having a coffee with and he's sharing his or her problem with you, maybe they don't need you there for solution, they just need you there to be silent and listen to them. And I think the same thing applies to the way we use AI. Now, I'll try to link That's the statement. Now into the conversational part, which is what Oliver and Rowan said. Oliver, you spoke about going analog, and I love that idea, really. And Rowan, you spoke about how do we work with it and not us being the final, let's say, receiver of the answer, but how do we work with it? So the conversation for someone to have with themselves is not how to use AI to get the answers I want. And that's actually, by the way, I have a YouTube channel that I do psychology-related videos, and I'm writing a scenario now that fits with all these things we're saying, which is how do we use AI to our advantage at the end of the day? Because if I'm using AI just to get answers, I'm becoming more stupid. I'm not using it to my advantage. But what we have all said here, I think I can encapsulate it in the phrase of how do we use AI to learn to ask the right questions and not necessarily to get the fast consuming answers. So that would be the second point. So first has to do with human friction, not tech fascination. The second thing is how do you equip yourself to ask the right questions?
Mm-hmm.
And the third is 3 questions to have in mind when you're actually practically building something. And these questions that I've seen help me through whatever I do lately around AI is first question, what is fixed? Like data, infrastructure, flows, data servers, backend system. So what is fixed? The second question is what is flexible? Like tone, goals, actions that you want the users to, the clients to do. And the third is what is future facing? Like, for example, adding new models or adding new flows or adding new user types. So what's fixed, what's flexible, and what's future facing? And you overlay AI to augment those 3 things. So that would be my answer to that question.
Yeah, I think that's so useful.
Love that.
And that human friction versus tech fascination part, I think, again, you touched upon it quite a few times today. It's people just jumping in and just tech, AI, without taking time to really think about what actually do I need to improve? Why do I need to improve it? Should we improve it? I think there's a great kind of great point there as well. So thank you, Dimitris. Oliver, bring us home. What would be your kind of your input on this one?
So, a couple of things. One I think I discussed on our panel, and just because it's been brought up now, it's like the human element. I think I love that we're all converging really into that, and I think that AI presents an opportunity for us to be more human. Especially when I'm looking at it from when I'm looking at it from a healthcare perspective, and you look at the burden of everything from administration to decision making to risk and all the things that go on. Like, if you can start to remove those with AI, what are you left with? You're left with, as Dimitri said, a human that's there, that's present, and is able and maybe just listening, right? And in a clinical setting, that is powerful. You get to hear more, you get to connect more, and potentially even change health outcomes in that sense. So AI has I feel AI has, and I think the future is we are going to be more human. There's going to be empathy roles, like just to be human, because everything else will be taken care of. There'll be creative roles. That's another time, by the way. That's another conversation. I go really deep. I build my own utopian world with AI in it. But to your question, Amit, as in what advice do we have to the designers out there right now? I think that they are needed more than ever. I think they really are needed more than ever. I think that it's the work that they do that the human element in the room needs to be there, and it needs to be accounted for. It needs to have an ambassador, so that we don't chuck tech at everything. I think that's really important. So I think it's really important that they're there. My second piece of advice, and I'll leave it with this, is just the curiosity that we're all here, we're all learning. We're all we're coming together to discuss this. I've for my own benefit here, just learning so much from having this conversation, and the tools that are out there. Use the tools. Figure out your own way of working with this stuff and building and testing. You can now build as a designer. That's amazing. That's amazing that you can now build something and show it with data. That's crazy, and that's going to bring such a powerful charge to transformation, I believe, and just always be the ambassador for the human element, and really champion that, because that's the real value that they're going to be bringing into the room, and there's a call to action there, for me. I feel there is at the moment.
Amazing. Yeah, and I echo that, just kind of getting together. I'm actually a little surprised sometimes. We run these monthly sessions at Experience Haus. We just started them. But I'm also surprised that, and what we do with these sessions is we get kind of instructors or students in our space, in our community, to share what they're doing with AI. But I'm a little bit surprised by how low the engagement is. And it's and how curious truly are people. Because I thought these things are going to be huge hits, but I feel like a lot of people just aren't taking that time to really be curious, or they're kind of just waiting back. I mean, and even Dimitris, you said there are different categories and stuff. So, but I do hope that kind of, things like this, these conversations, which are very casual, can kind of start to open up people to the kind of the practical side of kind of getting going with these tools. But I agree. I think curiosity, ever since last year, has been kind of the number one thing. Just go out there, just try it out, see how it's going to work. It might not be ready for your workflow. It might be ready. It might be something that you can kind of start using right away. But if you don't go away and start using it, and Rue, you said the same thing, then you're never going to know. You're never going to know what the art of the possible is as well. And then you may turn around and say, actually, we don't need this right now. It's not about the tech right now. We need to go back to that more human-centric, or eliminating those human frictions in another way as well. So just one last thing. How can people reach out and get in touch with you each? You may want to plug your LinkedIn or website, whatever. But Rue, how can people find out more about you if they want to connect with you?
To be honest, I'm trying to be active now on LinkedIn, because I'm bad at social media. I'm bad at texting. I'm a real nerd just on research. But I think LinkedIn now, I'm being more active on it. So LinkedIn for now, and I'm having also, because after DDX, a lot of people wanted also to have the chit chat about, again, career, research, design, and so on. So I'm having now a link as well where they can book me for chit chat thing. It's totally free of charge. It's just I'm here genuinely to help. And hopefully something in the future that's coming up. But again, it will be also announced or anything through LinkedIn for now.
Amazing. Great. Thank you so much. Dimitris, how about you?
Yeah, I would say LinkedIn is a good way of communicating. LinkedIn is one. And the second one is designthyself.com, where I have a weekly newsletter around psychology-related issues. I can touch on AI. I like the idea. I haven't played with it. So either on designthyself.com or LinkedIn. Very happy to have a chat, and you'll find me there. Amazing.
Thank you so much. And Oliver, over to you.
Yeah, I'm like Ro. I've been really bad at this, of putting myself out there. But recently, I've just been having some really interesting conversations, and we've even put some thought leadership out there, some articles on LinkedIn, really looking at the intersection of CX methodology and healthcare, how those two things kind of come together. So yeah, LinkedIn's the place to catch me. I'm Dubai based. I love talking. I love joining any conversations, and I would always be happy to discuss anything and offer any part of my experience that might help either young designers coming up in this world, or just sharing with peers to just learn more. I love all that. So absolutely, LinkedIn. I'll share the link. I don't know if Amit, you can.
I will share the link. Yeah, I'll share links out.
But yeah, that'd be great. One thing I'd like to say though is that we're talking about some of these young designers are probably further ahead in some spaces than us. In terms of experimenting, like in terms of experimenting and new tools and maybe even just understanding the new generation of people. So I'd love if this when you share this podcast, if we can get some comments and some sharing from the community just around this topic, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I think sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah, that would be really interesting because, like, again, sparks other conversations and topics. And at the end of the day, we're doing it actually for discussion.
Exactly.
So yeah, I think that would be really helpful.
Absolutely. I think we'll try and get the podcast out probably by mid next week, and then the DDX guys obviously will post it into the channel where there's a couple hundred people on there, and I think they're going to circulate it on their newsletter as well, which will kind of have a bit of a global reach. So I'm sure that it's going to spark some conversation as well. And I'll be back in Dubai at the end of the month, so maybe we can.
I was just gonna ask because shame on us, guys. We're based in Dubai, and whenever after DDX, we didn't meet at all. Let's do that.
No, I'm coming, and I'll be at the end of April and the end of May. So at one point we will definitely get together. Maybe we will book a studio and we do another chat. Who knows? We'll do something.
Yeah, that would be nice.
I'd love that.
Okay.
And a social connect as well. That would be awesome.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Great.
Perfect.
Thank you so much. I know it took a bit of time to get us here, but we got here. Really appreciate all of you kind of making the effort. I've learned a huge amount from today. It's 9 o'clock now, and I've got like this whole day of like kind of just go. I want to jump into Lovable and start building something today. So let's see. But thank you so much. We'll connect. We'll get this out into the world in the next couple of days, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, Amit.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We'll speak soon.
Speak soon.
Sure. Thank you.
Bye.